So let's get the view of two experts who were in the room while Rachel Reeves was speaking. That is Ian Anderson, of course, from H Advisors Cicero, who I think it's fair to say have kind of turned around to Labour a little bit in recent months, certainly before the election, and actually Armstrong, business editor of The Sun. Thank you very much. Ian, we will start with you. As I say, you kind of came out for Labour, didn't you, earlier on this year, I think. But there has been criticism. What did you think of her response to business today?
Yeah, I think this was the Iron Chancellor at her best today. Very open, not a stump speech, but a question and answer, a pretty comprehensive question and answer session. I think for me, it was very much about, look, this was a difficult budget for business. Everybody can see that. The Chancellor's accepted that, but I'm not coming back for more. Come with me now on a journey to invest in Britain with an industrial strategy. I was also in the room to hear her at the Mansion House with a significant deregulatory package, also talking today about business rates reform, planning reform. There's a lot here that I think business can get into, and she did not duck the difficult decision she had to make. She didn't duck that with the audience.
Instead of that, actually, I think you brought up her Mansion House speech, saying that actually she got a warm reception there.
Yeah.
But there are businesses that are, frankly, annoyed, or maybe even feel...
angry.
Betrayed, angry?
Angry, completely. I think, yeah, I got to ask the Chancellor exactly that point, because it felt like she'd won over the city with her red tape ripping and pension reforms, but there was very little in the budget for the normal traditional business. And let's face it, the normal traditional business, which is a big employer, they are kind of low earning jobs, but also lots of people's first jobs. But there's kind of service industry and retail. Those are the touch points that we will have for the economy. So if they're saying already that actually they're going to be cutting jobs and raising prices to afford her massive budget raid, why has she done it? Especially when we know that there's not going to be growth at the end of it. Why is she doing the thing that is immediately going to cut off jobs and also risk inflation coming back into the sector? So that's what I kind of wanted to get across. On the one hand, you're appeasing the city, but the general man on the street, the general business leader in the street, feels like you've just unleashed a world of pain again.
A fair point, Ian?
Well, I think one of the biggest things she said today, which lots of small businesses care about, I mean, I ran a small business for most of my career, so I've actually built a business, was planning reform, was actually business rates reform. Small businesses have been talking about that. It's difficult. The Sun's been campaigning for that. So she's done exactly what you wanted.
She
absolutely has. And the regulatory reform, she's pushed further forward today. She's talking about how that applies not just to what's happening in the city, but across the piece. I mean, look, people have their agendas, newspapers have their agendas. We're at this early stage of a new government, and actually I think most businesses are willing this on.
Yeah, no, the issue that I have is on the business rates reform, because she hasn't tackled that. She said she would, but in fact actually everybody on business rates is going to be ending up with a higher bill next year unless you're one of these small firms. So actually one of the reasons why a lot of businesses came out and supported the workers' rights reform was because they thought that they were getting something on the business rates, and she has said that she will be doing something on business rates, but we don't know the detail on it. And actually on the point about having that it will be the higher 1% of increased expensive properties, actually that's going to end up slamming 3 times as many retailers as it will the likes of Amazon. So she hasn't really reformed business rates. Just Ian,
I get your point about some things, but is there a recognition though that, you know, public finance is fine, but the jobs will be lost because of this. That, you know, this is going to cost companies tens of millions of pounds if you're of a certain size. There is some pain here, I suppose.
So I think, in a way, the thing that I want the government to do is kind of go faster. I think where we might both be, create the investment plan for Britain. Make Britain very investable. I mean, it's only 3 or 4 weeks ago that we did see that investment summit, front page of many newspapers, not necessarily supportive newspapers of the government, talking about how businesses want to invest in Britain. So, yes, pain, and there's definitive pain. Businesses are actually absolutely saying that. There is pain. But what is the gain from that pain? And I think to a large extent, The Chancellor was talking about that today. The thing that I'm spending a lot of time on right now is the industrial strategy and how businesses want to get involved, to use, I think, Ray Newton-Smith's expression earlier today, to co-create that industrial strategy. And also, the government is not dialing down at all in terms of the green transition commitment. Now, given what's just happened 3,500 miles away across the pond, and the potential for a dial down on commitments from the United States, Britain could be the investable place. So there's lots of ways to get involved, I think.
Yeah, and just finally, Ashley, let's talk about the opposition if we can for a second, because we also heard from Kemi Badenoch today. Really interesting from her. In one part, she was kind of saying, you know, I'm going to be a very different Conservative leader. I know I was business secretary, but we made loads of mistakes in government. An attempt, I think, for the Conservative Party also trying to rebuild bridges with business that's been pretty badly damaged over a very rocky couple of years.
Yeah. I think it wasn't nearly as inflammatory as some of her speeches have been to business communities in the past. I think the main question for her is being relevant to business at all, because I think we know what we're getting for at least the next 5 years, so it will really be in the next 2 years that Kemi or whoever is leader of the Tories at that stage is actually going to be relevant to business community. I think the biggest show for today was what the Chancellor had to say, and you know, it's kind of must be very different for them to be in second billing on the ticket.
Indeed, indeed. Really appreciate your time. Great stuff. Thank you very much, guys. That's Ian Anderson, Ashley Armstrong. Thank you for your time here on Business Live on Sky News. There you go. We heard from the Chancellor today saying that essentially she's heard a lot of feedback when it comes to the budget, but she hasn't heard any alternatives, suggesting she is not going to change path when it comes to those tax rises, but also going on to say that she can be confident that they are not going to go back and do another budget like that. That is it from me on Business Live for now. There'll be continuing coverage of the Chancellor's speech on NewsHour. That's with Mark Austin coming up in just a couple of minutes here on Sky News. Do stay tuned for that. But from me for now, until tomorrow at 11:30, thanks for watching from the CBI conference here in the centre of London. Goodbye.